So the first game this weekend in the Dominic Smith Electric Senior Football Championship is a game that was supposed to be played last weekend but was cancelled. And it's the relegation semi-final between St. Anne's and the Sarsfields. So first of all, David, what are your thoughts on the way this one will go?
I suppose the whoever loses this has another chance against Feathered, but I'm sure both teams will be wanting to get out of it this weekend. Sarsfields have played well in majority of games so far without getting a result, and the extra week might give a chance, a couple of injuries or whatnot to recover. But for me, if I had to pick, I'd pick the Anns to win narrowly. I think, I suppose their experience of big games, even it be at hurling, might stand to them, and the experience of some of their leading players, such as the Dio, Lee Moog, etc., might just edge this one in a tight game.
Ryan?
Yeah, well, I suppose, Peter, I done this one last week as well, so I can't really, I'm not going to change my mind. There's nothing happened during the week to make me change my mind. I said last week that I'd seen Bowe play, and I think it'll be very tight as well, the same as David, but I have a sneaky feeling that the Sarsfields might have the legs, and I think they might win it by a couple of points.
And again, I gave my thoughts last week and I went with St. Anne's. The only thing that I think the extra week might work in the Sarsfields' favour. Lee Chin has been injured, Richie Lawler has been injured and back from it as well. They both played junior, I think, last week. The fact that they have an extra week maybe to get ready could help the Sarsfields, but I'm still going to stick with St. Anne's on this one. And then on Sunday, we have the two semi-finals in the Dominic Smith Electric Senior Football Championship. The first one is at 12:15 between HWH Bunclody and the Shelmaliers. So, Brian, you can have first go on trying to figure out who's going to win this one.
Yeah, earlier on in the year, this one would have been, we would have probably felt this would be easier to figure out. We don't really have any form guide either. They've never met before in the senior football championship. I suppose these teams would have had plenty of battles underage. They would have had strong underage teams coming up together. Look, just from the Shell's point of view, you know, players like the display Pádraig O'Leary gave last weekend, I thought Simon Donohoe was outstanding. You know, you have Glenn Malone, Brian Malone, James Cash, and the fact that Owen Nolan has a game under his belt now as well. You know, that they were very impressive. They were very impressive last weekend. The only thing from their point of view is they've won one of their last 8 semi-finals, and that was 3 years ago when they went on to win the championship. And things like that, you know, people say it won't make any difference. It does make a difference. You know, it's a psychological thing. Bunclody are getting better and better every game. Probably got the toughest draw. I think Bunclody would have been happier to get any of the other two maybe left in it. Look at Martin O'Connor's having a super year. He's probably up there with, you know, he's one of the best footballers in the county. John Dunn, you know, even the unsung, you know, we've mentioned it a few times, the likes of Billy Kelly, cornerback, a few fellas like that, just having great years. They're just a great unit, you know. You know, they're a brilliant unit, and I think, you know, not many people saw Bunclody turning the Starlights over last week, but you know, there was no fluke about it, and there's no, like, what Bunclody are doing well is they're not conceding much. You know, they're conceding. They conceded 2-5 against Castletown, 8 points against Kylenair, and you know, they only conceded 2-6 again last weekend. Like, if you're only conceding 10, 11, 12 points in a game, you have a great chance of winning it. And they're working very well as a unit. And Pat Rowe has obviously done work. You know, I remember a time when you play Bunclody, it almost turned into a shootout. And it could be, you know, you could win a high-scoring game, you could lose a high-scoring game, but they just seem to have found something that they hadn't. And they're a very impressive all-around unit. Last semi-final they were in was 2007. So, look, everything I've said about Bunclody there is good. I just think they've got the toughest straw they could have got, and I have I kind of have a strong enough feeling for the Shells this weekend. I think the Shells will win the game, but not by very much, maybe 2 or 3 points.
And David, what are your thoughts?
Along very similar lines to Brian. I mean, look, I don't think many gave Bunclody a chance last week against the reigning champions. But I mean, I was very impressed with what I saw. I mean, Patrick Kavanagh in the goal made some fantastic saves. Brian has covered a few of the individuals. I mean, some of the lesser known names, Cathal Doyle, Billy Kelly, Sean Kelly in the middle of the field was powerful throughout. Obviously, they're bigger players, such as like Aidan Nolan's distribution outside of the right there a couple of times last week was superb to watch. He's marshalling the whole structure from the centre of defence, and then obviously Martin O'Connor is everywhere. And forwards wise, I like Peter Atkinson's hands and movement in the first half was excellent, and he often is left up there pretty much on his own. But I mean, again, you can see Pat Rowe's influence on it, on the structure of the team, the work rate, the collective, as opposed to the individual parts. And I mean, very, very, very impressive. Even small things like at each water break, at full time, in a tight knit circle, you can see that they're playing for each other, playing for the jersey, playing for Pat Rowe. So they're going to be very, very, very difficult to break down and stop. However, I said after the game the other day that probably if you had to pick one of the 4 to win it, I'd pick the Shells. I'd agree with Brian. Probably the worst possible draw Bunclody could have got. Shells were really solid all around last week with I mean, their key men really playing well as per usual. Simon Donoghue at the back, Glenn in the middle of the field, Brian up front with Pádraig O'Leary as well, obviously chipping in with a few points. Owen Nolan coming good, the 2 cashes there as usual. Like, I mean, Arnie Murphy possibly to come back into it. Like, they're so strong all around. Obviously, Craig McCabe in the goal as well. I mean, again, very impressed with him last weekend. Again, his distribution, even though they weren't under that much pressure from Glenbarntown, they looked really a well-oiled machine. That didn't, like other group winners, maybe they looked like no effects from the having the week off. In fact, I think it improved them even more. So, I mean, I think the Shells have their eyes on the prize insofar as winning the senior football. I'm sure Bunclody do too, but I would possibly think Bunclody are in bonus territory at this stage. And if I had to pick a winner, it'd definitely be the Shells this weekend. Brian says by 2 or 3. I'd possibly say by a bit more.
Well, I have to first of all apologise to Halfway House Bunclody. I said the Starlights last week. I thought they were going to win comfortably, and obviously that didn't materialise. Bunclody were very, very good. As Brian has said, they're very difficult to score against, and the Shells are one of the more high-scoring teams in the championship. So it'll be interesting to see if Bunclody can manage to curb the Shelmaliers' ability to score. And the thing that we mentioned on commentary there at the weekend, I think Mick Mann was actually the one, a Bunclody man, who was mentioning about the Shells, that their scores tend to be fairly well spread around with a lot of different guys capable of scoring. It's not that like they're relying on the same guys every day to score lots every day in the way that other teams might be. So look, I think the Shelmaliers are the team best equipped to win this year's championship. And I think I'll make it a full house and go with the Shelmaliers for the first semi-final. So we'll move on then to the second semi-final between Gusserane and St. Martin's, and that's at 2:15 on Sunday in Chadwick's Wexford Park. So David, we'll let you give your thoughts on this one first.
Yeah, I'm sure the Martins are happy to get out of Wexford Park with a win last week. Kyle Nearan pushed them really hard and had to rely on a last-minute Darren Godfrey to get them to extra time, and then they pulled it out of the fire. I don't think they're firing on all cylinders yet, which I'm sure Colin Murphy and Kieran are working hard on down in the training pitch. I mean, look at they have a huge array of talent down there. Some standout performers. We mentioned Rory O'Connor in the Player of the Week discussions. Rory O'Connor has been superb from wing back for the Martins all throughout the year. I thought Dahi Wars and Niall Hughes had a fantastic battle in the middle of the field last week. Dahi's playing well. I mean, Darren Codd is accurate from frees, and obviously we saw Barry O'Connor come off the bench last week, which may well lead to a start this week, which would be a huge tonic for the Martins. I think the Martins need to possibly add a bit more to the forward line to go on and win this out, but we'll see this weekend. Gusserane, on the other hand, I suppose surprise packets, and along with Bunclody obviously, but beating Castletown last week, even though Brian and I can't remember, but yeah, tipped Gusserane. They've got a lovely bit of momentum behind them now, with 2 or 3 wins on the bounce. Their big players are playing well. Gavin Sheehan is playing really well at the back. Minnie Ryan and Mark Roster up front are flying around. Killian Keogh is having a really, really good year in the middle of the field. I thought he had an excellent game in the middle of the field against Castletown last weekend. And I mean, they've got the experience of like Graham Cullen and Panther flying about there as well. Like, I thought Graham Cullen was excellent on the ball last week, and also when he didn't have the ball, he was pushing up on Colin Morrison, and I thought he had an excellent game. I mean, like, I think this is a really close game. If I had to pick a winner, I think the momentum and the form is with Gusserane. They've got firepower up front. They're playing really strong and are playing really well and tight at the back. All defenders are playing well. They're improving as the championship goes on. I'd say, like, going a point down into the wind with 15 minutes to go last week against Castletown and coming back and win it will give them huge confidence and momentum, and I think they'll carry that through to this weekend. I think the Martins need to improve. If that's there, they'll be thereabouts, but pick a winner, Gusserane, for me.
And just before I get Brian's thoughts, I want to apologise to Graham Cullen. He was absolutely brilliant for Gusserane at the weekend, and I forgot to mention in our Player of the Week. So I think Graham deserves an honourable mention. He really is the conductor of the orchestra for Gusserane, Brian.
Yeah, I think you're right. You're right there, Peter. He would be the man that, you know, the Martins would probably be singling out, because he almost plays like a quarterback. You know, if Graham plays well, Gusserane will play well. He's an outstanding footballer. Look at Gusserane have a lot of firepower. Mark Roster and Minnie are as good as any forwards in the county. Mark Roster won't miss. You know, if you give away frees, you'll be punished. He's a brilliant free taker, was brilliant from play as well. And David touched on it there. I mean, to concede the first 5 points so quick in the second half and go from being 4 points up to a point down after, you know, there was still 20 minutes to go, playing into a gale almost. And for Castletown not to score, you know, to hold Castletown scoreless from then on was a savage effort, you know, and that can't be underestimated. You know, they have some, you know, like Gavin Sheehan is one of the best backs in the county. He scored a point as well. My only concern for Gusserane was that they scored 14 points. Mark Roster scored 8 of them from frees, so they they scored 6 points from play. But look at they have momentum. You know, and they have that bit of experience as well with Panther and Kenneth Cahill and Killian Keogh, and they're all doing their bit, like, you know, whereas before they may have been over reliant on fellas like that, but, you know, all them guys now have to do is do their bit, and they're working well as a team. The Martins, the Martins were, you know, that was an excellent win last weekend. That's as far as competitiveness and commitment goes, you won't see any better than that from 2 teams. You know, you'd feel a bit for Kyle and Aaron, but there has to be a winner and a loser. But maybe in previous years the Martins mightn't win a game like that. You know, that was my take from it, and I just think sometimes you have to win a game like that to win a championship. Will the Martins win the championship? I don't know. I'm not 100% sure on that one. But, you know, they had some very impressive displays last weekend as well. I mean, Darren Codd scoring 1-7, 1-1 from play, 2 45s and 4 other frees. Luke Kavanagh chipped in with 3 points. and we've talked about him already, Rory O'Connor. I thought, when you have a fella like that, I thought he's tackling. He's, he when he moves forward, he just seems to glide across the ground. He created 2 or 3 goal chances, but I thought his tackling was ferocious. Barry O'Connor then coming in and scoring a point, and that gives the whole thing a lift, and it's great to see him playing a bit of football with the Martins. I think the Martins just need to be, their ability to turn over and tackle was brilliant. I just think sometimes they gave the ball away cheaply, and I think the 2 goals might have come from balls they gave away. So I think they need to look after the ball better when they have it. Now, they were under pressure from Kyle Nairn, who had some great performances as well, like Dino Toole and Hughes is, like Kyle Nairn died with the boots on. But when Dahi won, a lot of the scores that the Martins got came from balls that Dahi caught in the middle of the field. I mean, if he can dominate around there a bit more, I think the Martins will win it. It'll be close as well, but I think the Martins are sort of growing into the championship, and I think you might have 2 teams in the final this year, and they'll both have won all their games on the way to the final. So I think the Martins as well, by maybe the same margin as the first one, 2 or 3 points again.
One of the biggest concerns I'd have when I was looking at St. Martin's and Kyle Nairn, as Brian mentioned there, to get the win in that game was possibly the type of game that they mightn't have won other times. But one thing I thought throughout the game that they're going to need to improve on as the competition gets hotter, we'll say, as we go forward, is I did think they gave away far too many sloppy possessions of the ball. And if they can improve on that, I think they have a great chance. But I think these teams are very evenly matched. They both have a very solid set of 6 defenders who aren't afraid to get forward, who aren't afraid to put the pressure on when they have the ball. They have a tall, athletic, good men in the air, both sides. And both sides have plenty of good forwards who can score. And I think it might just come down to, obviously, whoever gets the bit of luck on the day. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see this one go to extra time, the same as the Martins had to go to extra time last week. I think if it did go to extra time, I'd fancy the Martins to pull it out of the bag, solely on the basis of the number of lads that are of a similar standard that they have on the bench. I think that's a major advantage to any team when a game gets tight, to be able to bring on 4 or 5 subs that are not going to weaken the team at all. Gusserane obviously have plenty of decent subs as well, but I'm just not sure they might have the same quality of a panel as St. Martin's. So just for that reason, I think the game will be very tight, but just for that reason, I think I might go with the Martins. So this weekend, we also have the semi-finals of the Amber Springs and Ashdown Park Hotel Intermediate Football Championship. And the first game in this of these semi-finals is between the Duffry Rovers and St. Mary's Maudlintown. So Brian, what are your thoughts on this one?
Thoughts on it? I think the Maudlintown probably have a bit more firepower. Paul Murphy scored 2-3 again the weekend, against Cushinstown, and he made the 3rd goal. So he's an excellent player. I think a lot of people thought this was a kind of an upset, Maudlintown beating Cushinstown. I didn't really see it like that myself. The Duffry, they had a 7-point lead at half time, and there was kind of no coming back from that. They had a good win. I actually saw the Duffry, they played Horswood in a practice match earlier on in the year under the lights in Horswood there. Well, they played 3/4 of a match. The lights went out the same night, but they were fairly impressive that night. Now, to be honest, and I kind of remember saying, "Just they'll be thereabouts," But I think with Paul Murphy and 2 brothers, and I think Maudlintown will have too much for the Duffry in this one.
And David, a man who's played in this championship, of course, against Maudlintown.
Yeah, and lost out to Maudlintown in the preliminary quarter-final. Yeah, no, I was impressed with Maudlintown when we played them. PJ Banville and John Coggan over them and have them well organised all playing for each other. Some really good individuals and a real team collective there. I mean, I was really impressed with Marty O'Connor, Eddie Pittman, Warren Brothers, Dermy Flood, Pierce Dooley. Spot Murphy's quite enough against us, but burst onto the scene, or not burst onto the scene, but got 2-3 last week against Cushenstown. No, and look, they have 2 wins behind them now, and they have a bit of momentum. Duffry had a good win over the Fintons last weekend. Rob Franey and Johnny Flynn O'Connor inside are very dangerous. And as Brian says, they've been impressive in the championship so far. I probably go for Maudlintown again. When the Marys get their tails up, they'll be very hard to stop, and I know they have their eyes on the prize this year. So probably pick Maudlintown there in a close game.
And I saw Maudlintown play St. Fintons. They didn't finish the game very strongly, but obviously Paul Murphy is the main target man up front for them. Very impressed with Eddie Pittman that day. They're solid all over the field, as both of the lads just mentioned, but there's something tells me that I just think the Duffry Rovers might be able to out-battle them, maybe, if that's the right word, and maybe just prevail by a point or two. So that's my thoughts on that one. And the second one then is between Naomh Éanna and Crossabeg Ballymurn. So David, what way do you think this one will go?
Yeah, that was a great win for Gorey last weekend against Ferns, coming back from a few points down to pip it by a point, and they have a passionate and loud following after them as well in Patrick's Park last week, and in fairness, we're full value for the win. It's great to see from an under-20 management perspective, the likes of Brian Cush and Rian Fitzpatrick playing so well for Gorey and carrying their form from earlier on in the year into that. So delighted to see them playing well. Obviously, Keane and the 2 Malays up front as well, very dangerous, scoring heavily. So Gorey are in a rich vein of form and probably got the draw they didn't want. I mean, Crossabeg Ballymurn have been blitzing teams so far in the championship, albeit last weekend I think Timon were missing a few, but still a very impressive scoreline, and their scores are coming from everywhere. We know all about Crossabeg Ballymurn, the size and strength they have with the Devrixes, the 2 Foleys. Ben Turner in the goal is excellent. They have strength all over the field, and I mean, for me, this has to be the year Crossabeg Ballymurn get out of intermediate football. I think they're good enough to be a good competitive senior football team, and for me, Crossabeg Ballymurn by a few points again this weekend. And Brian?
Yeah, look, Crossabeg had a massive win over Timon, but as David said there, I think Timon were missing 5 starters. Look at Crossabeg, are a big, strong team, good footballers. Everyone knows that they've probably, would have expected them to be senior by now. They've missed a couple of chances to get there. They had this game won fairly early on. Gorey, that's a huge win for Gorey over Ferns. I think some of last year's junior team have come on, and they have a few minors from last year that are playing intermediate this year. They were down to 14 men for a lot of that game the weekend as well. So that made it even more impressive. I suppose having Michael Malay back, Keane Malay. Look, Gorey have some good footballers, and I suppose they had an unusual one in that Jack Doran was on the field as a temporary replacement when he got the goal. That doesn't happen very often, that you're on as a blood sub and score a goal in a championship match. But look at going back to Crossabeg, I just think they're too big, strong. They've too many good footballers. The Devrixes, Foleys. I think Crossabeg could be comfortable enough winners in this one.
And I'll just comment maybe on the paths to the semi-finals. The fact, I think the Gorey were in a very competitive group with the Duffry and Timon, and then they got over Ferns in the quarter-final last week. I think those type of competitive games will stand to a team, whereas Crossabeg Ballymurn haven't really been challenged at all. Now, that's obviously a testament to how good they've been playing. But some of the wins that they've had have been really sort of fairly facile wins, really, particularly against Limbarntown. slightly lesser extent against Ballyhogue, but they still won it by 15 points. I think they beat Glenbarntown by 32 points or something like that. So that obviously shows that they're a very impressive team, but have they really been challenged, and how will they respond to the challenge? And the other thing for Ballymurn is, I'm not sure, is it this week or is it next week that a couple of the Devricks are going to be missing? Obviously they'd be big losses if they're going away, traveling or working or whatever they were going away for. But if they're going to be missing them, it could be a tougher challenge. But I'm going to still stick with Crossabeg Ballymurn. I think the fact that they've won the game so easily means that they're in really, really good form, and I expect them to win at the weekend.